Okay. Back to John 11. Alright. We're going to pick up now. Remember, Jesus gets down there and it says that Lazarus has been dead 4 days. And when he comes, let's just start in verse 18. John 11:18. We're looking at this last miracle in these 7. And it says, Now Bethany was nigh unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off. That's about 30 miles. It said, Many of the Jews came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him. But Mary sat still in the house. What do y'all think about that? Martha run out to meet him, but Mary sits in the house. Y'all go back to Luke 10. Luke 10:38. What we're going to do this time is we're going to look at the effect that this miracle had on everybody involved. Okay? Luke 10:38. This is prior to raising Lazarus. These three only appear in these 3 stories we're going to look at. Now it came to pass as they went that he, Jesus, entered into a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha received him into her house. Not all of them, him. She's got one extra guest. She's got to feed another mouth, right? Verse 39. She had a sister called Mary, which also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. Mary sitting there listening. Verse 40. Martha was cumbered about much serving, and came to him and said, Lord, dost thou not care that my sister hath left me to serve alone? Bid her therefore that she help me. Y'all see the attitude of the two? One of them is a worker, and the other one, somebody would say, well, she's a loafer. Well, I doubt seriously she's low. She's probably done her part already, or however you want to look at it, but it doesn't matter whether she's done her part or not done her part. What was the most important thing to Mary? Hear his word. She's sitting at his feet. Mary, we see 3 times here, Mary. You know where she's going to be every single time?
At his feet.
At the feet of Jesus. First time she's at his feet, is here listening. The next time when they raise Lazarus, she comes and she falls down at his feet, praying and worshiping him. And then the last time we see him, she's down at his feet anointing him, rubbing her hair. She's always at the feet of Jesus. So Martha then is a worker, and Mary's resting at his feet. Now we ought to see the picture there. It's like Cain and Abel, and I'm not saying Martha's lost. I don't believe that. I just believe Martha is, number 1, got a different personality, but number 2, she hasn't seen all the things that Mary's seen yet. Verse 41. Jesus answered and said unto her, Martha, Martha, thou art careful, full of care, and troubled about many things. Oh, Martha had a lot going on, didn't you? But one thing is needful, full of need. Look, these words change over time, and we really lose a lot of meaning here. What the Lord just said is, Martha, your mind and your worry and your concern is on all kinds of things, and one thing matters. One thing is needful or full of need, and Mary hath chosen that good part which shall not be taken away from her. You know what he just told her? You ought to quit all that working and sit down and listen to. Now there's salvation. Now there's all kind of ways you could go about looking at this, but this is the first time we see it. Okay? Now y'all flip over and go to John 12. Right after Jesus raises Lazarus. (12:1). Then Jesus, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead. There they made him a supper. And Martha served, but Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with him. Now, notice they're having this meal. Martha's serving. Do y'all hear Martha complaining? Mm-hmm. What happened between this one and the other meal?
She heard what Jesus said to her.
Lazarus was raised from the dead. Did that have an effect on Martha? Yeah, Martha's faith is increased. It says, Then Mary took a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the odor of the ointment. Then saith one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him, Why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said not because he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief, and had the bag, and bare what was put therein. Now think about what Judas is really doing. That tells us a lot, doesn't it? Judas is the original treasurer, isn't he? And what's he doing?
He's trying to increase the treasury.
He's increasing the treasury. We say, well, he's skimming off the top, and I don't doubt that a bit, but in the context, that ain't there. In the context, he's trying to increase the building fund. In the context, he's trying to raise the proceeds at the bake sale, okay? He's looking to increase here. It says, then Jesus said, let her alone. Against the day of my burying have she kept this. For the poor always ye have with you. Ye have me not always. Much people therefore the Jews came, and on and on. Now look at the three positions. In verse 2, Martha served. Lazarus sat. Mary's kneeling at his feet. Y'all see the progression there? Let's just do it like this. Martha. Lazarus. Mary. Okay. Go over to 1 John. 1 John 2. All right, 1 John 2:12. John says, I write unto you, little children, because your sins are forgiven for his name's sake. Little children, sins are forgiven. Is he talking, is he writing unto little children who can't even read and write? No. He's writing unto spiritual little children. What does Paul call the Galatians?
Babes.
My little children, okay? Verse 13. I write unto you, fathers, because you have known him that is from the beginning. I write unto you, young man, because you have overcome the wicked one. And y'all see the three cases there. We've got little children, and then we've got young men, and then we've got fathers. Now, what has a father done that a young man's not done? Reproduced. He's bore fruit, hadn't he? Immediately when we hear reproduce or bear fruit, I know our mind always goes to you preach and somebody else gets saved. Folks, there's millions and probably billions of people that have bore fruit that have never called to preach the gospel. Is God looking just for external fruit in reproduction of other believers? Bible says he's looking for fruit in us, isn't he? Do y'all see the fruit in the progression from Martha serving to Lazarus sitting to Mary kneeling? Paul said it like this: least of the apostles, least of all saints, chief of sinners. Look at the position. Are they going up? No. They're going from standing to seating to kneeling. There's your picture. There's the fruit God's looking for us in just one perspective. Now, we could probably do a lot of things with this. We could also say these are three types of saved people. Are there people that are called to serve? Yeah, folks, there's people that serve the Lord. Hey, you might serve Him in cooking, cleaning, whatever it is you do. I suspect at the judgment seat of Christ, we will meet housewives, mothers, that are going to be so elevated in the eyes of the Lord, and yet all they ever did was run the affairs of their house. Well, is that what the Lord called them to do? It's what He called them to do. Then what? Then do it with your might. Whatever the Lord calls you to do. Alright? Lazarus is sitting. I suspect there's a lot of people that have just had communion with the Lord. He's sitting there at a meal with Him, isn't he? And then you got Mary here's down on her knees. I imagine there's a lot of people. Look, I know a lot of people that I don't have any discernment in the thing. I can see something about them that those people are called to pray. I mean, I see some people that just literally, those people's calling is prayer. They are great prayers. And I don't mean praying to be heard. I don't mean they're orators or any of that kind of junk. I mean, you talk to them and they say, with real interest, they say to, where's so-and-so, so-and-so, and what's happening? So, I'll pray for them. And not say, and I hope thoughts and prayers are with you. I don't mean that junk. I mean, I'll pray for them. Okay? I've got lots of friends. I've told y'all many times, whatever it is the Lord calls us to do, do it. Just because you're not the tongue doesn't mean that you don't need the ear or the foot or whatever else in between. All the members are the same. Now in this progression, there's one more way to look at it. Go over to Mark 4. Mark 4 verse 20. We're down to the good soil. Okay? Now he's already identified the other three soils. Now we're down to the good soil. Verse 20. These are they which are sown on good ground, such as hear the word and receive it. Did Mary hear at his feet? She received what she heard? And bring forth fruit. Now again, people immediately say, yeah, watch, run out and, well, look, preaching the gospel, sure. That's some people's calling. He says some 30-fold, some 60, some 100-fold. Now, what is from 30 to 60 to 100? Is that an increase? Well, immediately somebody would say, well, one preached and 30 got saved. And take your mind off of that for a minute. Women aren't called to get in front of a congregation and preach, are they? But what about bearing fruit in the knowledge and admonition of the Lord? How about just praise and worship? How about just communion, just talking with Him? How about just learning about the Lord in your daily life? So whatever it is you're going through. Can y'all see the difference in the look? 30, 60, 100? Watch Jesus do it one more time. Verse 26. So is the kingdom of God, as if a man should cast seed into the ground. The seed's the word, faith, into dirt to believers. And should sleep and rise night and day. The seed should spring up and grow up. He knoweth not how. That word knoweth is also perceive. Can you look on the spiritual growth? You can't see it, can you? So he said, for the earth bringeth forth fruit of herself. First the blade, then the ear. After that the full corn in the ear. Y'all see the progression? The blade, the ear, the full corn in the ear. Okay, back over to John. So when he raises Lazarus from the dead, what effect does it have on not only Lazarus but his two sisters? Faith is increased, isn't it? Absolutely their faith is increased. Now let's go look at the next group. John 11, verse 20 again. Martha, as soon as she heard that Jesus was coming, went and met him, but Mary sat still in the house. Hey, I read something a man wrote. He said that Mary by this time wasn't concerned about Lazarus anymore. Where would you get that from? Folks, why is Mary sitting in the house?
She has faith.
She's got faith. Her faith is stronger than Martha's. Look, strong faith is not running to action. It ain't always running to action. The strongest faith sits and waits on the Lord. That's the thing we don't want to do. Me and you do not want to just sit and be still and wait on the Lord. We want results. We want action. Lord, I want you to get rid of this thing and I want it right now. I can't tell y'all how many times I've said, I am not going to do this anymore. And then I say, oh, with your help, Lord. And I mark the time and say, right here, that's it. As soon as you mark the time, you're doomed for failure. Instead of doing that, what I need to do is each minute of each day, just wait on the Lord. Lord, I see this thing in my life, and I see this thing that this hindrance, whatever it is, I need you to step in here and do it. And until you do it, give me the will to want you to do it. And let me sit and watch you do this thing in my life, because I've already proven I can't do it. Now I'm a failure. And I'll always be a failure, Lord, but you're no failure. Let me just sit and wait on the Lord. So Mary just sits in the house. Verse 21. Then said Martha unto Jesus, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it thee. Think about what she's saying there. She's hinting at the fact that I want you to raise him from the dead, isn't she? She's seen him raise, or his disciples have certainly seen him raise the dead, haven't they? We know of at least 2 others he's raised by this point. Remember the young girl at Jairus' daughter and the young man at the funeral procession? He raised them, didn't he? Jesus saith unto her, thy brother shall rise again. Now this is fascinating. When we talk about resurrection, our mind always goes over here, doesn't it? Physical. And we ought to be thinking about that spiritual resurrection in us, shouldn't we? But now in this case, Jesus Christ is talking about that very moment right there, and she's worried about over here, isn't she? There's our picture. Me and you ought to be the same. Every time I think about being raised from the dead, I wish I wouldn't think about over here. I wish I'd think about how right now I have been raised out of the death of sin, made to walk in Christ, got newness of life, never fade away. There's the resurrection my mind ought to be on. But he says, verse 24, Martha saith unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus corrected her and said, no, Martha, 7 years before the last day. He do that? No. She said something that was true. He resurrected at the last day. Now, did she believe that?
Yeah.
She believed the statement, didn't she? But she's like a little kid, right? Like all of us. When it comes down time for it, look at verse 38. Jesus therefore again, groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. Jesus said, take ye away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saith unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he hath been dead 4 days. Did she say she believed Jesus could raise her brother from the dead?
Mm-hmm.
At the last day. In other words, I believe you could raise him 1,000 years from now, Lord, if that's what you want to do. But when he said roll away the stone, what happened?
No faith.
No faith. See, all of a sudden that pipe dream kind of faith that we talk about that we have, now it's meeting here's the proof time, isn't it? Roll away the stone. It's like you standing on a cliff and you say, Lord, I believe I could step off this cliff and you'd save me in front of a bunch of people, and somebody says, do it. Seriously. All of a sudden it's real to her, isn't it? When reality hit her and the thought of her poor old brother disgusted, she didn't want to see that, did she? See, she believed, but she needed the Lord to help her with her unbelief. There's the picture. I find Martha reminds me, if you asked me before the cross, who was the most, what's the word? It's Peter. How was Peter before the cross? He was just rambunctious, always going to do something, always out front, always the worry. He was going to get it done, right? Well, if you want the female counterpart, that's Martha. Folks, Martha run out to meet the Lord. Now, y'all think about in the position 2,000 years ago. A woman? Where should she have done? Should she have run out and took audience with the Lord and started giving him advice on what to do and not to do? No. Mary sat at the house, didn't she? Now, here she is out here doing this and says, Lord, he's been dead 4 days. So basically, Lord, I believe that you could raise him up from dirt 1,000 years from now. Okay, then I can do it in 4 days, no problem. No, Lord, don't do that. Now, there's our faith. That's a picture of me and you. Oh, I believe in these things I talk about, I believe. Lord, I believe you can give me the strength to do this or to not do this or whatever it is. And then when the time comes, what happens? We fret and we fail at it, don't we? If we never sit back like Mary and watch the Lord work, we'll never have faith in his work. See, you can't have faith in something that you always see. Faith is built by waiting and looking for something that someone promised, and then after a period of time, that promise comes true. That's faith. Look, it doesn't take faith for me to tell y'all, I've got coffee. You don't need any faith. We've always got coffee. It's sitting right there, doesn't it? Now, if I told y'all I had filet mignon ready, that would take faith, wouldn't it? I mean, seriously, it takes faith is a promise. Faith is taking God at his word. The Lord said, I am the resurrection and the life. And Mary said, oh, I believe that, Lord. And he said, roll away the stone. And she said, stop. There's us. That's me and you. Just remember that. That's us. Now, back when he says this, verse 24. Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth, present tense, in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. Then is Jesus going to raise the dead? He said, and whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this? Now, is he saying that a believer will never die physically? He's not even saying that a believer will never die spiritually. Because folks, even unbelievers are going to spend eternity somewhere. What he's saying right here is, I am the resurrection. Not only will I raise the dead, when those that are dead when I come, I'll raise them. But when I come, those that are alive won't die. I'll raise them too. They'll be changed. Now verse 27. She saith unto him, Yea, Lord, I believe thou art the Christ, the Son of God, which should come into the world. Now she did believe that. And does Jesus Christ see that as a form of faith? Me and Wayne were talking about this before class. It's the same thing Peter said, didn't he? Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And he said, who revealed that to Peter? The Father. Then who revealed it to Martha? The Father. Now, how much does she believe beyond that? Don't look like she believes too much beyond that, does it? Does the Lord reject her and say, oh, that pitiful faith of yours, get out of my sight? Does he say, your testimony doesn't sound like Mary's testimony, therefore Mary must be saved and you must be lost? Hey, y'all ever know about dealing with kids? I can remember my granny. I used to ask her when I was younger, it bothered me, and then when I got older, I was proud of it. I used to joke with my granny all the time, once we were older, that she loved me more than all the other grandkids. And she would say, well, what would make you say that? And I say, you never spanked. My granny didn't spank the other grandkids. Seriously, she had 6 children, and they were all, she didn't spank them.
They weren't bad like me.
They weren't bad like me, that's for sure.
Were you the oldest? Or?
No, I wasn't the oldest. I was one of the youngest.
You got whipped.
You know why I got whipped the most? I was living at my granny's house all the time. I was under her roof. Folks, those other kids come and go, and I mean, she'd correct them and whatnot, but I was the one. And I used to tell her, we used to like to play poker. My granny loved poker, and we'd play. And I would pick out and say, Granny, admit you love me more than the rest of them. And she would say, would you just hush with that, you know? And I finally told her, you know, but I said, you've got to admit that at least you love me and my sisters more than those others. And she told me one time, she said, look, I'm not going to tell you I love y'all more than them. Y'all just needed me more. There's the picture. We did. We needed her. Look, without my granny, we'd have been doomed, right? We needed her more. We did. How much do you need the Lord Jesus Christ? More. Folks, there it is. Now, how can the Lord deal with us? The more you need Him, the more the Lord deals with us. But what do you have to see? We've got to see our need, don't we? What about these stand strong Christians? Then the ladies group and me are going to get together? No. Or me and the men are going to do? Folks, that ain't going to get nothing done. Look, that's nothing different than cutting the grass at the Elks Lodge or any other social function. It means nothing. What we're talking about right now is Mary and Martha. Martha ran out there to do something, and what did Mary do? She sat and waited on the Lord. Which one of them needed the Lord more in their own mind? Mary did. Which one of them actually needed the Lord more maturity-wise? Martha. Do y'all reckon Martha, if you would have said to Martha one time, you know, Mary is so much more spiritually mature to you, it would have floored Martha. It would have shocked her. She never would have been able to convince her that Mary was the spiritually mature one, would you? I mean, seriously, it's like telling someone today, the people that think they know the most doctrine, actually, you know, it's amazing. The people that talk about Paul the most actually know the least about what Paul had to say. I mean, they really do. They know. And the people that think they know the most doctrinally, well, obviously they don't. When we think we know something, that's when we're really dumb. We don't know anything. Okay, so he goes on with this. It says, 28 says, when she had so said, she went her way and called Mary her sister secretly, saying, the Master is come and calleth for thee. As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly and came to him. Mary waited on the call, didn't she? Martha didn't wait for the call to action. Martha acted and just see how the chips fall. What did Mary do again? She sat and waited on the Lord. Folks, you try that. Hey, y'all know we get in situations, everybody in this room has got something right now that you continually do that you wish you wouldn't do. Every one of us. I don't care how simple it is. And there ain't a lick of, I don't care if it's murder or if it's a little white lie or anywhere in between. Is it any different to Jesus Christ? The difference is the desire not to do it. And I'm not telling you that this God is looking to bring about this sinless. No, 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 folks. Sin is a tool. Remember where we started. Why did God allow Lazarus to die? For His glory. Why does God allow whatever those things are that are in you? So He can clean you up? He ain't want to clean you up. You clean as a whistle today. He saved you spiritually. What are those little sins doing? Or big sins, what are they doing? Making me and you depend on Him. It's showing us our complete dependence on the Lord so that the Lord can be glorified. How is it glorifying when somebody... I had a friend one time, he went to those to the AA meetings, and he said at the AA meetings you always stand up and talk about how long you've been sober, right? Well, if you stand up and give a testimony about how long you've been sober, who does that give the glory to? You, doesn't it? When me and you stand up and talk about how long we've been this or how long we've been that, who's getting the glory? You. Me and you. A guy said one said, I've been sober 15 years, and the other one only been sober a few days. And he said, yeah, but we both sober today, ain't we? Ain't that the picture? What is more pleasing to the Lord? The one that stands up and boasts of his growth, or the one that says, well, I need the Lord just as much today as I needed Him the day I was saved or ever do, and this is never going to change. I know one thing, my behavior outwardly might have changed in some situations, and it might not have, but it don't change my faith in the fact that the Lord saved me. I belong to the Lord just as much in this sin as I do not in this sin, and that's not to say that I just want to continue in it. It's to tell you that I know that I am an absolute failure, and unless the Lord performs this thing in me daily, then daily I'll be involved in this thing. And that's total dependence on the Lord. And that's the fruit God is looking to bring forth in us. Remember what He said. He wants us to, all men to be saved and to come unto the knowledge of the truth. Now y'all think how men take that. I got to get saved and learn this doctrine. Nope. Who said I am the truth? Right. Then what does Jesus Christ want us to do? Come to know Him. How are you going to get to know somebody you don't need? Y'all think about it. I can tell y'all this, and I can include my sisters too. When my granny died, me and my sisters were devastated. The other grandchildren weren't very bothered. They just weren't very bothered. Why? We needed her more. My granny, I know things about my granny that I know nobody else knows. There's things me and my sisters could get together today, and we could just say little words or little looks, and we smile sitting together thinking about my granny. We needed her. I mean, and folks, the discipline of my granny was harsh. And you know, I can remember just longing for that. I'm dead serious. Because you got a parent that just ain't very interested. Kids know that. When you got somebody that doesn't want to take the time to deal with you in a thing, a kid can tell. Look, Lexi's little nephew comes over here and he tries to get in trouble, I believe. I'm serious. Well, I'm not telling you that that's what we ought to do, but I'm telling y'all that's what we do. Me and you will go off a deep end and literally make decisions that's absolutely just trying to destroy ourselves. And you know what we're really trying to do? We're calling on the Lord that we need Him. Folks, we need the Lord. And just like I had to have my granny growing up, now I look back and I had a relationship with my granny that all those other grandkids didn't have. You know who missed out? Them. Boy, they didn't think they were missing out when she was beating me. We had a Thanksgiving dinner one time, and my two cousins went out in the woods. And my granny had woods all around her house. We always played them. And they dug a big old hole. And it had been raining, I can't tell you how, for days. And they laid sticks and pine straw over the hole. And I was little, and they got on the other side, Rodney and Steve, and they said, Troy, come with us. And of course, I went running and fell in the hole, right? Well, I got all soaked on Thanksgiving. Guess who got in trouble?
You.
Me. I didn't. You see what I mean? No, I didn't do it. I can remember thinking, my granny told me, it didn't refer back to me. She had told me to do something before I ever run out in them woods. Before I ever went out there, she had sent me, it's called the junk room. They had an extra bedroom, that she called it her junk room, and she had a freezer and all kind of stuff. She had sent me into the junk room to get something. My granny desired that I do something, and my will was to do something else. And what was the result? I got all wet. And then what was the result? I got tore up. Now you think about me and you. It's God's desire that you and I look to the Lord Jesus Christ and serve Him. But our will enters in, and we're going to go do this or go do that. And most of the time we say we're going to do it in the name of the Lord, and the Lord ain't got nothing to do with it. But when we go do those things, what happens? disaster. Folks, our will is always a disaster. I mean, seriously, we don't know. Now, who knows more about the Lord? The person that gets saved and truly believes that the Lord died for their sins, and yet never tries to address any of their behavior, never tries to address their service, never tries to do anything in the Lord, just sits like a little bitty baby, unchastised. You don't beat on little babies, folks. Unchastised, and never comes to know their Lord as Father, do they? But what about the one that begins to try and serve? What happens? A little kid that never learns to walk will sit in the crib all their life. You come in and you got a 50-year-old man laying in a crib, right? But what about the one that begins to try and walk? They fall. And who's there to pick them up? Their parent, the Lord. When you begin to want to serve the Lord, when He creates a desire in us to want to serve Him, to come to know Him, are there going to be failures? What do those failures do? They draw us closer to Him. Folks, we need the Lord. And this Martha needs Him worse than Mary. Mary needs Him just as bad. The difference is Mary knows it. Martha's still giving the Lord advice, isn't she? Y'all ever pray like that? I find that I pray. Look, in this context, I can tell you, Martha, there's me. I'm Martha. I'll pray to the Lord something about that I know is His will, and Lord, I know I need to do this thing. Only let me do it this way. I would rather not do it that way. See, that way might humiliate me, or might, no, let me do it this way. No, that ain't no good. Forget about that. Now it says when Martha comes, or Mary comes, verse 29, as soon as she heard, she rose quickly and came to Him. Now Jesus was not yet come into the town, but was in that place where Martha met Him. Folks, Martha ran and met Him out of town. I mean, really, y'all. I read several different things people write about this, and they act like Martha was some great. Folks, that's missing the boat. No, look, Martha's the one that, you know, I used to hear Brother Moore say he's going to charge hell with a water bucket. There's Martha, all about it, right? Now watch what it says next. The Jews then, which were with her in the house, and comforted her, when they saw Mary, that she rose up hastily and went out, followed her. Huh? They see Mary now. They follow her, saying, she goeth unto the grave to weep there. Then when Mary was come where Jesus was and saw Him, she fell down at His feet. What did the people see? They saw Mary fall down at His feet. Folks, what did they see Martha do? Stand, serve, and literally rebuke the Lord. What did they see Martha do? Sit, wait, and kneel. What do you think people ought to see in us? That's a Christian. That's what Christian is all about. It ain't about walking in strength and Lord. It's about this Mary here. This is it. It said she came, she fell down at His feet, saying unto Him, Lord, if Thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. The exact same words her sister said, but look at the difference in the attitude. Mary standing, meets Him on His way, and literally looks to me like almost a rebuke. Lord, why didn't You come? If You'd have been here, He wouldn't have died. But You could raise Him from the dead now. Does Mary make any mention of that? You know what Mary said? She kneeled down at His feet and said, Lord, if You wouldn't have been here, He wouldn't have died. What's the difference? Nevertheless, Thy will be done. That's the difference. Now it says, when Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews also weeping, which came with her, He groaned in the spirit and was troubled. And He said, where have you laid Him? They said unto Him, Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. Shortest verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. Is Jesus weeping for Lazarus? No way. Is He weeping for Martha? Partly. Who come here and brought the tears out in Him? Mary. What did Mary do? She fell down at His feet. You know, you ever have... I had a great uncle, and they used to laugh and say, boy, if you can just get him, you can pull at his heart cord and get anything you want out of him. Folks, you want to get something from the Lord that you need, not something we want, not a new car. And you want to get the Lord active in your life, fall down at His feet. Fall down at His feet and plead with Him. Lord, I need You. It's what He desires. Now it says, then the Jews said the Jews, behold how He loved Him. And some of them said, Could not this man which opened the eyes of the blind have caused that even this man should not have died? Boy, that healing that blind man's really word's gotten around, hadn't it? Now all of these people have come out to see, haven't they? Okay, now it says, Jesus said, therefore again, groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. Jesus said, Take ye away the stone. You know, this is so, it's like almost reminiscent of his own resurrection when you compare them, isn't it? When he rolled away, that angel rolled the stone away from Jesus' tomb. Was Jesus in there? He was already raised. Did the stone need to be rolled away to let him out?
No.
The stone had to be rolled away to let Peter and John in. Now stone, what does the stone, above all things in Scripture, what does the stone represent? The idea, I can keep the law. That's the stone. The stony heart. He said the old covenant was a stony heart put in a man, wasn't it? What did he say he would create in us? A new heart. How could you ever get saved until that stone gets out of your heart? As long as you think you can do it, you're never going to trust the Lord, will you? He had to roll the stone away so that we could come to Him. I mean, you've got to have that stone rolled away in us now. He rolls that stone away, and Peter and John look in, don't they? When they look in, what did Peter and John see? Grave clothes. The grave clothes. Lazarus comes forth. Look what it says, verse 44. He that was dead came forth bound hand and foot with grave clothes. His face was bound about with a napkin. Napkins just, look, don't think of a napkin like it's a smaller cloth. Well, wait a minute. Jesus came forth and the clothes laid right there. In fact, the napkin was folded up neatly, laid over to the side. Remember when John looked in there? They saw those grave clothes. Did Jesus resurrect and undress himself? What did he do? Passed right through them, folks. Is Lazarus resurrected in a glorified body? Lazarus is restored to physical life. Jesus Christ passed right through the grave clothes. Could Lazarus walk right through a wall? Bust his head wide open, wouldn't he? They were in the upper room. What did Jesus Christ do? Right through it. What did John say? In 1 John he said, today we don't know what we'll be like, but we know this. When the Lord appears, we'll be like Him. Now I don't know what all that entails, but I expect that if I want to walk through a wall, I'll walk through a wall. If the Lord's got somewhere for you to go, you'll go like that. If there's something to be done, it'll be done. So Lazarus then is raised from the dead, and yet he comes forth bound with the napkin on his face. When John looked in the tomb of Jesus Christ, it says clearly that right there at that moment. Flip over there. John 20. Mary Magdalene sees the Lord. She comes and she tells them, and they think she's crazy. Y'all ever thought about how many times he told them he was going to be raised from the dead, and then when they hear he's raised from the dead, they don't believe it? Isn't that unbelievable? How many times have we been told that He has taken away the power so that sin should not reign over us, and we won't believe it, will we? He says in verse 3, Peter therefore went forth, and that other disciple, and came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together, and the other disciple did outrun Peter. I always wonder if John's getting a dig in at Peter there. He outran him, but anyway. And came first to the sepulchre. He, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying, yet went not in. Then cometh Simon Peter following him, and went into the sepulchre, and seeth the linen clothes lie, and the napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. Then went in also that other disciple, which came first into the sepulchre, and he saw and believed. What did John believe? Jesus had been risen from the dead. What has this napkin got to do with it? This is a Jewish, look, there's all kind of Jewish customs that we miss out on because we're not Jews in the Gospels. Tons of them. Just tons of things we just miss out on. But let's do it this way. If I get up and I go to the restaurant, and I've got my napkin, okay? And I get up and I've got to run to the bathroom halfway through my meal, and I take my napkin and I fold it and I set it over to the side. When I come back, will my plate be there? What if I take my napkin and I ball it up and throw it in the plate? What does that say?
You're done.
I'm done. I'm finished. I won't be back. When John saw that napkin folded, what statement did that made?
I'll be back.
I'll be back. Not Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jesus Christ. I shall return. And did he?
Yep.
Folks, that napkin triggered his thinking. That was a statement. After 3 days, I'll rise again. Boom, John believed, didn't he? Okay, now we go back over to John, finish this thing up. John 11:38. Jesus therefore, groaning in himself, cometh to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. Jesus said, Take ye away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, saith unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh. He hath been dead 4 days. That's why I say the other one was a rebuke. If you don't see that as a rebuke, it's a rebuke. Even if it was just as polite as could be, it doesn't matter. Jesus said, take away the stone. What should Martha have said?
Shut up.
She should have said nothing, right? She should have been quiet. Mary didn't say anything, did she? Even if Mary's gut told her, our Lord, he's been dead 4 days. You know what her mind told her? The Lord knows what he's doing. I think sometimes, Lord, if you were really involved in my life, I wouldn't be thinking this. And then you know what I got to remember? The Lord knows what he's doing. Lord, if you were involved in my life, I wouldn't be in this place right now. And I got to remember I'm wherever I am because that's where the Lord has me. Now he says, verse 40, Jesus saith unto her, Said I not unto thee, that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God. Y'all know that verse is completely backwards from the world's thinking. Look what it says. If thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see. The world says I'll believe it when I can see it. The world says believing, seeing is believing, don't they? Will seeing ever produce faith? Now what did he just tell Martha? If you believe, then you'll see. There's a promise from Jesus Christ. If we believe him, will he show us the truth of his word? I don't care what snare we get caught in. If we just always turn to the Lord and trust in the Lord will bring us through it. Now he said 41. He took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. I knew that thou hearest me always. But because of the people which stand by I said it, that they may believe that thou hast sent me. In other words, I'm already in perfect communion with you, Lord, and you know my every thought, and we know what's going to happen here. But in order that these people can have their faith increased, what's he going to do? I'm going to say it first before I do it. Now, somebody said they can do something, and then they do it. That produces faith in their word, doesn't it? If somebody does it and then says they can do it, that ain't... I've told y'all before about a guy come from New Orleans, and they had a big Chevrolet truck, and they said he can stand right there and jump on the hood of that truck without touching it. I said, there ain't no way. They're going to bet $50. I said, oh, I'll take that. And my buddy Randy said, don't do it, Troy. I thought, why not? That boy took one step. A young kid, about 17, took one step and jumped in the air up on top of a C500 truck.
Like a cat.
Yeah, like a cat. I couldn't believe I just saw that. But you know what? He told me he could do it first. Later on, he told me he could do something else, and guess what? I believed him. See, you don't believe because you saw. You have a belief in somebody's word because they said something and then it come true. Now, he says here, he's prayed this, verse 43, when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. A loud voice. What are we waiting on? Loud voice. Lazarus, come forth. I suspect many have said it, and I suspect it's true. If the Lord would have just said, come forth, graves all over the earth would have busted open. He said, Lazarus, come forth. He that was dead came forth bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. Jesus saith unto them, loose him and let him go. Now watch verse 45. Then many of the Jews which came to Mary, notice it's not Martha, that came to Mary and had seen the things which Jesus did, believed on him. What was the effect on the people that saw? Why isn't it the ones that was with Martha? What do y'all reckon Mary was doing in that house?
Praying.
I bet you she was praying to the Lord. Did Jesus just pray so that the people could hear? Those people heard Mary. Look, it's my suspicion. It would be. What if Mary was praying, Lord, I believe on you with all my heart. You are the resurrection and the life. If you want to raise him from the dead, you can. You will one day. But if you want him to remain dead, I'm fine with that too, Lord. Your will be done. And she walks out there, and what does the Lord do? Raises him up. What did them people that are with Mary do? They believe. Now there's another group, real quick. Verse 46. Some of them went their ways to the Pharisees and told them what things Jesus had done. Those are the thrill seekers, just out there to see something. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council and said, what do we, for this man doeth many miracles? That's one of the most condemning statements in the whole Bible. Did the leaders of the Jews say, this man does many miracles? How could they possibly say that they didn't know he was come from God? They can't. Folks, at a bare minimum, wouldn't they have to say he was a prophet come from God? Didn't all the great prophets do miracles? One way or another, they'd have to say, well, look, I don't understand, but this man came from God. We better hear what he has to say. Is that what they say? Watch what they say. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and our nation. There's what they're doing. If you let that guy speak in your assembly, somebody might leave. If you let that guy teach him, somebody might follow him. If you let that guy go, he'll get an ought. Y'all know how people say stuff like this all the time. What do they basically say here? We got to shut this man up. I know me and Chris do. Anybody else like to watch mafia movies? Every time I read this, I think about Tony Soprano. Right? If you have a guy rats on the mafia, he's going to bear witness or testify against them in court. He ever going to court? No. That guy ain't going to court. He will never set foot in that courtroom. I don't care what it is, what's going to happen. They're going to kill him. Are they killing him out of hatred? More than anything, what are they killing him out of? Self-preservation. They've got to stop his testimony for their own benefit, otherwise they'll lose their position and everything they have. Here's your modern or your ancient mafia. This is the Jewish mafia right here. They have got to shut up the testimony of Jesus Christ. Otherwise, they'll be condemned. They'll lose everything, won't they? Watch what the boss of the family says here in 49. One of them named Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said unto them, ye know nothing at all. Boy, ain't that a statement? If it just stopped right there, that's the truest statement in the whole Bible, isn't it? You know nothing at all. Nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, that the whole nation perish not. Ain't that what the mafia says? It's better for us to whack this guy than we all go to jail, right? It says, this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation, and not for that nation. Now what nation is that nation? Israel. It's the Jews, right? And not for that nation only, but also that he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad. Somebody says that's the children of that nation scattered abroad. And at the time, that's all it was. No way. What did John just say right here in John 11? He was going to die not only for the nation Israel, but for who? For all the nations where the children of God all over the world. I mean, out the window goes the idea that that was never revealed till later. It's all over the place. So he said, not for that nation only, but for all the children of God. And it says 53, from that day forth they took counsel together for to put him to death. They're going to kill him to stop his testimony. What caused that? He raised Lazarus from the dead. He just testified to something that could not be denied. The proof was there, the testimony is true, so the only other thing you can do is stop the testimony. Now what is Satan doing today? Is the gospel true? Is the proof there? He can't stop the one that did it. So what does he do? He tries to silence the gospel. Not by killing everybody that preaches it. He's tried that. That never worked. He mixed up all. You know another way the mafia can get a guy? You get a guy in there to testify, and a good lawyer will bring up his past and bring up a few things he did, and what will they do?
Discredit him.
They'll discredit him. What did Satan do? He mixed the gospel up and discredited it. He uses sinful, rotten men with a sinful intention. Now, all men are sinners, but he uses men that have an intention at gaining something from people, mixes their desire in there, and the whole thing gets so polluted and so fouled up. Then you throw in the good workers and the good workers get in there and do their thing, and the world sees when they don't do good works, and next thing you know, you've got a testimony that's so polluted and so fouled up that nobody anywhere believes any of it. That's what the devil did. Now before we close, I just want to show y'all one more thing. They're going to kill Jesus Christ because he raised Lazarus from the dead. But come down to verse 9 of chapter 12. Much people of the Jews therefore knew that he was there, Jesus, and they came not for Jesus' sake only, but that they might see Lazarus also, whom he had raised from the dead. Alright, is Lazarus, do you have a single word quoted by Lazarus anywhere in the Scripture? But is he a testimony under the power of Jesus Christ? Do you have to open your mouth? Folks, I'm telling y'all, again, I suspect we'll meet ladies at the judgment seat of Christ that were nothing more than a godly mother to their children. But in every moment of every day, they tried their best to serve God and do it the way God would have them do. They never opened their mouth in anything. You'll meet ladies that couldn't have children. At the judgment seat of Christ, we'll meet ladies that did nothing more but just was the wife to their husband the way God wanted them to be. They look to God in all things. Don't ever make this about some outward service. It ain't. Now watch what verse 10 says. The chief priests consulted that they might put Lazarus also to death, because that by reason of him many of the Jews went away and believed on Jesus. It ain't enough to kill the Lord. They say, we're going to kill Lazarus too. We're going to get rid of the one that did it and the proof that he did it. Now that's what the effect Lazarus had on the unbeliever. What does the world say about the unbelieving world say about the Christian? Folks, y'all know in our country they can't just kill them yet. They might soon, but anyway. But what will they do? They'll do anything in their power to shut you up, discredit you. Hey, a guy said one time about me, he said something, that guy did such and such. And I said, well, I can tell you more than that. And you want to know what I've done? Come on, I'll tell you all about it. I'm not ashamed to tell you how rotten I am. I'm ashamed to tell you that most of my life I wouldn't admit it.
You needed that door open, didn't you?
Yeah.
You showed them.
Sure.
You just like them.
And you could say, well, you telling me you're glad that you're a sinner? No, I'm telling you I'm glad the Lord allowed me in sins that finally showed me how sinful I was. I'm glad the Lord allowed my sin for His glory. If I had not committed the sins, I never would have known what I am. Again, I'm not telling you I'm proud of the sins. I'm not. I don't want to be a sinner, but it's what I am. But I'm thankful for those exact sins that really opened my eyes. I'm thankful for them. So whatever you do, know that it's to the Lord's glory, and let the Lord be glorified in it. All right, any questions? Okay, thank you.